The first commercial job I did was hell. It was awful. Like, I thought there's no way I'm ever going to do another storyboard job after the first time. It was on Christmas Eve. It was like with this miserable, pathetic, insecure commercial director. He hated everything I did. He made me redo everything like twice. And after that, I was just like, I don't think I want to. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be abused by people for a living.
Hey gang, welcome to Beyond the Process, where we explore the art of storytelling. I'm Shane Patrick White, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host and personal chef, Lance Laspina. Today, we have a very special guest who I'm a fan of, and I've noticed his work early on when he was doing storyboards first, but he also does comic books. His name is Gabriel Hardman. Welcome to the show, Gabriel.
Thanks for having me.
Can you please tell everybody who you are and what you do?
I am a storyboard artist and illustrator for films like Inception and Interstellar and Logan and Ferrari and Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny and Tropic Thunder and the Austin Powers movies. And I also have a career, making comics, Green Lantern Earth, writing and drawing comics, Green Lantern Earth 1, Invisible Republic, a book called Kinski, The Belfry, my smaller indie books. And I've kind of pursued those parallel careers for a while.
Now let's get into how you did break into storyboards.
Yeah,
because you came from New York, you came out to LA because you wanted to get into film, and also it was a little bit less expensive. It sounds funny saying this.
It was less expensive.
At that time. It was.
Yeah. And how I got into it was I went around. I'd tell everybody that I wanted to be a storyboard artist, but I made no effort whatsoever to do that. I didn't actually want to. It wasn't something I was excited about. But what I was also I'm a big fan of Twin Peaks. And I went to a book signing with Twin Peaks co-creator Mark Frost at the Bookstore in Studio City. And I was waiting in line to get the thing, to get my book signed. Guy next to me in line starts talking to me. I'm like, he's like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I draw comics. At that time, I was working for Malibu Comics at that point, right? At the time, the Ultraverse Malibu Comics. Yeah. But everything was clearly falling apart, in the comics industry. And so, I told the guy next to me, oh, well, I draw comics, but I'm trying to be a storyboard artist. And he was like, oh, I know an agent who represents storyboards and storyboard artists. And I ended up getting that guy's card, calling the agent. And the agent was like, okay, well, come over tomorrow and bring your portfolio, right? And I was like, I don't have a portfolio. I haven't actually done anything. And so that night, I just kind of bullshitted and designed a sequence, like an action sequence set in the rotunda of the Guggenheim Museum, right? Because I spent so much time standing around there. I'm thinking about action sequences and stuff and things that could happen in there, right? So I boarded out my little idea of the Guggenheim action sequence and brought along some of my comic stuff. And then that guy got me jobs off that. On some commercials, which the first commercial job I did was hell. It was awful. I thought there's no way I'm ever going to do another storyboard job after the first time. It was it was on Christmas Eve. It was like with this miserable, pathetic, insecure commercial director, right?
I think I know him.
Yeah. He was an old guy in 1996, so I met him yet. But he hated everything I did. He made me redo everything twice. I had to go in on it was the couple days up to Christmas. I had to go in and meet with him at RSA or wherever it was on Christmas Eve, and And after that, I was just like, I don't think I want to, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be abused by people for a living, And then the agent was like, oh, maybe it's not going to work out or whatever. But then they hired another guy to redo everything I did. And the other guy who came in was like, those boards were really good. I don't know what that guy's talking about to the agent. Right. And so then I just got other commercial jobs and then got out of that as quickly as I possibly could, because I'm not fond of commercials or advertising or any of that stuff. And I don't like the world of working with those people or advertising agencies. Right?
You dropped your agent after that, or went solo?
Well, okay. I did. I mean, it wasn't right after that. I mean, I was with him for about a year. I got the first Austin Powers movie through him. That was the first movie I did. It was a very small movie at the time. It was like a $16 million movie. It started non-union, and I worked with Jay Roach and Mike Myers very, closely. Went over to Mike's house a lot, and
nice,
it was actually a really good first experience for working on something, because I ended up working on it for like 4 months and was very involved, and learned a lot about filmmaking from it. And then I got the X-Files movie, and then I got I got something else terrible movie, Wild Wild West. But the good part of it was that it was a huge movie, and I got the call for it because somebody from Tim Flattery, another artist who was on the X-Files movie, recommended me. And I went in there the agent didn't know about it. I just went in, I got myself a raise, like a bump in my rate. Nice. And then the agent realized I'd never signed a contract with him and got super insecure and started freaking out at me. And, and at one point he got drunk and called me and yelled at me. And then I was like, I don't think I need an agent right now.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll get another agent. Like when I run out of work, I'll get another agent. So,
right. You do have one thing to thank him for, though. You have something to thank him for. He got you into the union.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't get me into the union, though.
Well, he got you the job that got me into the union.
He did get me the job. Producer on Austin Powers, Eric McLeod, is the one who got me into the union very early, which was really good. Like that was actually amazing. The biggest positive thing out of it. One of the biggest positives out of it, because I worked, as I said, it was non-union. So I did enough work on it when it was non-union, and then to get the hours, and then it went union when they started shooting. Wow. So then Eric was good enough to just report those hours to the union, and that grandfathered me in. So I lucked into getting into the union really early, which is
You're very fortunate
for my career.
You cleared a huge hurdle at the beginning of your storyboard career, which guys like even my age still struggling to get into the union.
Sure.
Which and there are so many like weird ways that you can get in, and that's probably one of the best ones. Yeah. Best ways to get in is to start on a film that's non-union and turns union.
Total.
When you were working on Austin Powers, like were you nervous initially going in, because this was kind of like the first, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Like how did that go down? And also the fact that it was a comedy. I don't think I've worked on any comedies whatsoever, but I mean.
I worked on a lot of comedies, but I was a sponge for this stuff, and I wanted to learn everything. I also spent a lot of time pretending like I knew everything already, it was an education in comedy. I mean, it's not like I don't love those movies exactly, but I think that I learned a lot actually about comedy from Mike Myers. He's a real, like a lot of comedy people, he's a very a nerd for it, and there's nothing funny that goes on in the world of actually making the stuff. It's all unbelievably serious and talking about theory and craft, right? And which then just turns into fart jokes or whatever. But that was good. And I mean, I think that I got a pretty good sense of how to shoot comedy, not even exactly from that, but just like even me intuiting what worked and what didn't work and stuff like that. And I worked on a bunch of comedies early on. I mean, that's more of an entry at the time, more of an entry level thing because they have lower budgets, you know, and than big giant movies. But like, but I mean, when I feel like I had to work on comedies forever, but it was really a couple of years.
I imagine that your love of film and your constant study of film probably served you well on your first storyboarding job, because guys coming from comics going to storyboards doesn't necessarily translate exactly unless you do have a knowledge of film ahead of time. It's like, did you already know the 180 degree rule?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
Okay, so
I
you knew that
about all that stuff just from me, like reading books and being interested and you know, reading about filmmaking. And honestly, I was intimidated at the beginning, to get back to your, you know, Shane, your question, but like but once I got into it, especially after, you know, after the first couple commercials and then Austin Powers, I was like, wait a second. All those books I've been reading and turned out to be pretty handy. Like you know, like all that. It's a, you know, because it feels like there's this, you know, there's lots of jargon and there's lots of stuff that, you know, that feels like that could feel intimidating. But I was like, man, I know all this stuff. Like it's not, you know, it's not. So that was not. That was a less of a hurdle ultimately, just because I'd spent so much time studying on my own, just out of interest.
So like when you started working more into the action oriented films, was there another learning curve that you had to endure, or and how did you go about figuring that out for yourself?
You know, like I've worked with these people like Christopher Nolan or whatever. Like I didn't learn anything from Christopher Nolan, right? Like I learned stuff that I was, you know, I'm on the level where I end up working with Christopher Nolan. Like the people I learned the most from were like this guy, Rob Bowman, who directed the X-Files movie and a bunch of X-Files episodes and stuff like that. And he's, you know, he's like a bit of a shooter, but like I learned so many simple, practical things from him about like how to tell a story visually, how to like just put things in the foreground, you know, things that like, you know, all of the kind of things that he developed. You know, he was a kid from, you know, who grew up in the business, and his dad worked for Stephen J. Cannell, and like, and so he was like, you know, he was in that kind of world the whole time. He became a director really young. He was like in his early 20s when he became a director. Wow. He worked on, you know, Star Trek and a bunch of other things, you know, The Next Generation and other things like that, and just developed a lot of like real clear practical things that you can do that, you know, that he taught me that, you know, that were really, really valuable, you know, and I still think about all the time. And so like I did learn on the job. I also was arrogant enough to weasel my way into to directing like 2 days of second unit on the X-Files movie.
Nice.
Just because I was around all the time, they, you know, and I have in general in my career, it's like a lot of storyboard people, you know, they do a little job, they move on another little job, and I've always ended up in these situations where I get hired on something and then I'm on forever, and like I was on that movie all the way through production, right? Like so I was in the position where they kept like having a hard time keeping second unit directors that Rob was happy with, and we were out in the desert on location, and I was in a big production meeting with him and Chris Carter, who created the show, and like one of the producers, Dan Sackheim, and some other people, and the DP, and I was like, and they were like, well, who's going to shoot this? Who's going to shoot this second unit stuff? Like, you know, in 2 days or whatever, you know, and like, and I'm like sitting in the back of the room, and I'm like, and I literally just said, I'll do it. And like, and everybody turned to me like they were going to kill me. And then, you know, and then like the DP was like, why don't you just let him do it? He knows what Rob wants better than other people do. And, you know, and then they were like, okay, fine. And then so the UPM was in the DGA. So he basically was on set with me so that it was legal, you know. But I did get to direct, and there were helicopter shots. There was
oh my god,
it was not the only had other second unit helicopter shot directing experience, but like after that, but the helicopter, it was a air to ground type, like a helicopter shot of the car, pulling through the desert, and some blow by shots of the car driving around and stuff. Like, it was that sort of stuff,
Oh yeah,
and but it was great. It was intense, it was, there was one, at the end of the first day, it was like, oh my God, I need to pee so badly, but it's magic hour and I can't walk away. We got, it's great stuff,
Somebody give me a diaper. That's crazy. Can we go back? You said UPM, just for clarification.
The unit production manager. Sorry. The
unit production manager.
Basically the producer who's in charge of practical, budget stuff and the caterers and making everyone's deal and all that sort of stuff. The nuts and bolts producer.
Okay, nice.
So you spent quite a lot of time now doing storyboards before you went back to doing comics. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what was the time period approximately?
It was, I think, about 10 years. It was like 10 years in between. Yeah, because I didn't actually get a comic published until like 2009. So that's more like, 13, 14 years. But it was, I worked on Sam Raimi's third Spider-Man movie, and it went on forever. It was a nightmare. It was obvious the movie was going to be terrible the entire time. But I also I'd never worked with Sam before, but then kind of became like his right-hand man type guy, and would have to he demanded everybody stay, or at least his little group of storyboard people, who then also hated me for kind of rising above them in the ranks of stuff. But I'd have to stay there whenever Sam was on at work, right? So I was not allowed to leave until Sam left.
Boy.
We would be I was on all the way through production and then came back for reshoots. But there were days where they'd shoot all day, and then Sam would go to editorial and I just have to go to editorial. It'd be like 2 a.m. and sitting around at editorial. God. I was working unbelievable long hours and never really going home or sleeping or whatever.
Oh my God.
And it was for nothing, it's for this movie that's not any good. And so but that was the job and I had to do it, and at the end of that, I was like, I can't only do this. I can't just it's nihilistic.
Shane and I really appreciate you guys tuning into our YouTube channel today. If you enjoyed this short conversation and would like to see the entire interview, then please head on over to our Substack, where you'll not only find all of our full-length interviews, but a ton of super interesting posts that we've created just for you guys. Link is in the description box below. So until next time, thanks for watching.